Hi everybody. So here we go, month of April. We're going to continue reading Bree's Story, Swan. And it's time. It's time. Today I have Bree's favorite in the world besides a little mirror was her bonger. I used to have to keep backups because she would use them so much that the ball would break off. But it's meant to self-massage yourself. She would do this literally to her own shoulders, just like this. And whenever I did it to her, oh my God, the smile and the giggles on her face. But she would always have this in her hand because it was a stimulation for her. And it kept her hands throughout her life really, really flexible because, you know, you'll see some kids and their hands get real tight. And she would go from hand to hand, and, you know, I can see where, you know, and when she had something to say, she'd go, yes. So, Bree's bonger. So I always keep one, a little ribbon around it now, but I always keep one. I actually have a couple. So, it was great. It was great. This was first brought to me by my first teacher in nutrition. In macrobiotics, which means long life and one peaceful world. And Mary Cat came one Christmas to visit us because we were a family that was first met her with the stimulation program, which I'm about to read about. And wonderful woman from Ireland, and her brother was a priest in Ireland, and she had met Mother Teresa. These people started coming into our lives that had these amazing connections. So two of them, Marcel Vogel, who was a senior scientist with IBM for 27 years doing all the crystals in the computer. His son was a Catholic priest in the Yukon, Northwest Territories in Canada, the Yukon. And not the Northwest, the Yukon on its own. It's a territory. And he had met Mother Teresa. So, you know, Bree was drawing in some amazing spiritual people to her. Yeah, it's still beyond, I just go, wow. So here we go. In the fall of 1981, my mother sent me a newspaper clipping about a father who was doing a stimulation program at home with his brain-injured daughter. The following week, another article arrived from Walter, my husband, Bree's dad's grandmother, about a family in England doing the same program. Both families had learned about the program from a place in Philadelphia, and as soon as I received the second article, I knew I had to contact the people, find out. I always find that when things come in multiple times to get us to pay attention. Like, oh my God, third time, you should be paying attention. The Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential sent me a book list, and I ordered, this is the name of the book, this is the book every parent of a hurt child should read. It's What to Do About Your Brain-Injured Child, because it's an injury to the brain, you know, not to the spirit, it's an injury to the brain. A book I had heard about and I was trying to obtain. Reading it was like once I got it, it was like having the lights go on. These people seemed to be doing something I could sink my teeth in. My prayers had been answered. This is one of the major turnarounds for us. I learned from Glenn Doman's book, What to Do About Your Brain-Injured Child, that while the world believes that the parents of brain-injured children are often a problem, he believes they can be the answer to the problem because hurt children can get better. Their parents can do the jobs better than anyone else. The Institute teaches parents how to work with the children. The best is mom to child, then dad to child, then anyone else who cares about the child. But it really is the best. And I find, and maybe it's just me, but I find a lot of parents looking for someone else to do it. You know, that baby just wants to be with mama. It believes parents get much better results than professionals do, mainly because professionals are taught that injured brains are beyond repair, while parents tend to believe in miracles and then make them happen. Yeah. In his book, Doman explains why he uses the generic term brain injured for all types of deficiencies, including mental, what was called then, we're talking decades ago, mental retardation. We're talking about that, like that was the original. Hey, I'm more mentally retarded than if you're going to use that term, than my daughter ever was. She was spiritually, emotionally more advanced than I could dream of. I dream of being advanced as that. The problems are not weak arms or legs or poor musculature or malformed organs or speech or defective eyes as much as the world believes. But the problems originated within the brain out of some accident which occurred before, during, or after birth and interfered with the brain's ability to respond to it. I mean, any one of us could be brain injured tomorrow. So, it's like, there but the grace of God go I guess the saying goes. This fantastic book was exactly what I had been looking for. All the books I had read in the previous 18 months had not come close to its principles and ideas. These people at the institutes were doing things with children that were logical. They believed in these children. They did not believe that simply because they could not walk or talk, they were stupid, or at least not smart. This was so different from what I had encountered so far. It all made so much sense, common sense, that somehow we would have to take Bree to Philadelphia as soon as possible. Now I'm trying to, we weren't rich people. We had like money to do all this stuff. It was just hope, prayer. This would entail a serious commitment. The parents are required to do a stimulation program 7 days a week, including holidays, all day long for a minimum of 2 years. The mother had to be the major programmer, with the father being the second choice. I came from a background believing in very strong work ethic, so this did not scare me. There was one major obstacle, the 18-month waiting list for an appointment at the Institute, and I sought a way to overcome this. This was I wanted to do it yesterday. Once I knew there was an alternative, there was chances, I just wanted to start immediately. And remember, I'm always working on that time frame of, I've got 5 years to turn the diagnosis of, she'll be lucky to live to 5 around. So this is my child. I am motivated. I am driven. I will not apologize for it. I was driven. I was driven to get there and to start this and to, help my child. So I wrote a long letter to the institutes detailing Bree's birth and syndrome and asked for an appointment. Walter, who had read the book, was impressed with the ideas but was hesitant to commit to what this program asked of the parents, and he was concerned about the cost. I told him that I had already written a letter to them. I said that we had not seen anything in a year and a half since Bree's birth that even came close to what they proposed. Also, I pointed out that the waiting list was long and that even if we were on it, we could cancel if we wanted to, and if we didn't act now, we would be extending the waiting period. Walter wasn't worried about the length of the wait, but I was deeply concerned about Bree because Bree had only been given a 5-year lifespan. March of 1983, that was the date given, something to look forward to, of our appointment to go there. I sent in the $100 required to confirm the appointment. Walter was concerned about where the rest of the money for visits to Philadelphia and treatment costs would come from. I was sure it would come from anywhere, I was serenely sure it would come from somewhere when the time was right. So I just believed. March of 1983 seemed an eternity away, but I was full of optimism. I thought of all the professionals I had seen to date, none made positive changes in Bree. One physiotherapist came up with the idea of putting Bree inside an inner tube to teach her how to sit up. I didn't know any better, so I did that. I attended meetings of parent-to-parent groups, found most of the parents were nice, but they had different beliefs. Most had total confidence in the medical profession and were resigned to dealing with doctors and hospitals for the rest of their lives, while I was looking for something different. I didn't know what, but I was determined to keep looking. Maybe it was my growing spiritual beliefs that told me the answers were out there somewhere, although at that point I too was very dependent on the medical profession and their drug treatments. Perhaps this place in Philadelphia held the answers. I deeply hope so. In the meantime, life went on in a series of ups and downs. Bree's first tooth erupted at 19 months. She had been teething since she was 7 months old and suffered considerable pain. By the time she was 20 months old, she had 6 teeth, and she was 5.5 before she got her full set of teeth. It was a long and painful process. At one stage, she screamed for 10 days straight. Then a tooth erupted and she was fine, until the next one started to come through. One offshot of this stress was increased seizure activity, something that happened whenever she was out of sorts. The only thing that gave her any contentment was being rocked in my arms in a rocking chair, and I spent days at a time doing that. Yeah, those 5 years, that rocking chair, oh my God, when I couldn't take it on my moves. We spent a lot of time I'm so grateful. Rocking chairs are, you have a baby, have a rocking chair and spend time in it. It comforts them. So a rocking chair was really, really important to us. God, how I wished I could make it all better. Watching Bree in pain or ill was worse than anything else. I ran through all the times that all the things, I was always doing that. I ran through all the things that might have caused the pain or the seizure, and when nothing checked out, I wanted to scream, but screaming wouldn't make the problem go away. I mean, I was always, what did she eat last? What did we do last? Where were we last? I was always trying to zero in, what I might have to delete from our environment or the foods, or searching for what was the cause. When I think back, Bree was and is beautiful to me, and it is only when I look back at old pictures that I see, in a sense, what other people saw. They saw a brain injured child. She had a big red stain on her forehead, which was part of the syndrome, a dazed look in her wide-set eyes, very little hair, which seemed to refuse to grow, and a frightening immobility at that point. The only times I was aware of how different Bree really looked was when I saw things reflected in the eyes of passers-by who would look at her strangely. I would straighten her when I was in the stroller. I'd straighten her up in the stroller, trying to make her look like any other child in a stroller, and then go back to seeing her through my own eyes. One thing I had noticed about other brain injured children, or pictures of them, was that they were always seemed to be unkept and disheveled. And so I made a special point of keeping Bree nicely dressed, of having everything color coordinated. Some people would comment on her nice outfits, and it was true that she did look sweet in them. Bree taught me a lot about people. She became my gauge for sizing them up. I knew where they stood, first by their reaction to her, and then by their conversation with her. Many people said she looked sleepy. Another common comment was a question, "What's wrong?" when she did not instantly respond to them. Once Walter's aunt was reading to her and made a mistake. Then she compounded it by saying, "Oh, I made a mistake, but you won't understand anyway." Those types of comments just seared, because people didn't think she understand. We know babies understand things in the womb. We know people have understood things when they've been in coma and come back. To presume that because someone isn't acting like other people, they don't understand. You know, animals understand, for God's sake. You know, animals know when it's walk time, when it's feeding time, and they know every day when they're supposed to be fed and what time. You know, so anyway, those are the things, is part of what you go through. I made a point of keeping people like that away from Bree as much as possible. I was learning so much about life through her. I believe that when people show indifference to Bree, it is because they're afraid. People who tend to believe that a child is stupid if she doesn't respond to them have not caught on to the fact that brain-injured children seek to force them to deal with a higher level of communication, almost a telepathic type of communication. It always surprised me that people can understand the needs and wants of their dogs and cats, and yet do not realize that with a little extra attention to detail, they could similarly understand the needs of a brain-injured child. The attitude of my family members continued to be one of denial. My father kept saying Bree would grow out of it, and my mother, so understanding in many ways, was still, a year and a half later, trying to find someone to blame. Once on a visit, we were having supper with them and my oldest brother, Ronnie, and his family. Ronnie's attitude was made perfectly clear. He stated in no uncertain terms that he believed mentally retarded children should be put away. In his opinion, they were useless because they would never be able to do anything. So, you know, it's something when you're sitting there listening to this and you're just going, well, I know where that person stands, but then again, I feel sorry for the children of someone like that, because you better stay healthy. You know, you better not have a car accident and have a brain injury. You better not, if this is what your parent thinks. You know. And I don't hold resentment. I wish them all well. Dr. Viktor Frankl, in his classic book, a book I highly recommend to anybody, Man's Search for Meaning, talks about usefulness. This book was written about man's freedom to transcend suffering and find a meaning to their life regardless of their circumstances. And he survived. Yes, this came from a man during a time he spent as a prisoner in Auschwitz, the concentration camps. So Viktor Frankl wrote, just as life remains potentially meaningful under any conditions, even those which are miserable, so does the value of each and every person stay with him or her. And it does so because it is based on the values that he or she has realized in the past, and is not contingent on the usefulness that he or she may or may not retain in the present. More specifically, this usefulness is usually defined in terms of functioning. Like my brother, how are you functioning for the society? If you don't function for the society, in his terms, you're not supposed to be here. But today's society is characterized by achievement, orientation, and consequently, it adores people who are successful and happy, and in particular, it adores the young. It virtually ignores the value of those who are otherwise, like Bree, and in doing so, blurs the decisive difference between being valuable in the sense of dignity and being valuable in the sense of usefulness. You know, I mean, Bree's value, the people's lives she's changed, the compassion and understanding she's brought out. I mean, she totally changed my life. Anybody that spent time with her and decided to spend time with her, the lives were changed for the better, guaranteed. There I was sitting at the table with my 18-month-old, quote-unquote, mentally retarded daughter, who was doing nothing. When he realized what he had done, he tried to make an exception of Bree, while my mother tried to smooth the situation over by seeking someone to blame, and I blew up. I just blew up. I was so tired of their always trying to project blame elsewhere, as if it mattered. It didn't matter. Nothing was going to change the fact that Bree was brain injured. Dealing with the situation as human beings was the only answer. I needed support from people, not an endless going around and around in circles. It's interesting to know that this was the same brother, 6 years later, who saw Bree clapping her hands and commented on it. I was able to tell him that she had been able to do that for the past 5 or 6 years. He had seen her many, many times during that period, but had not even noticed. He had not taken the opportunity to learn anything from Bree because he did not see her as a person. Later, this same brother was to look me straight in the eyes and say that if Bree had been born to him, he would have left her in the hospital. In a way, Bree was invisible to him, and I tremble for him, if that's, He's changed a lot. He has changed a lot, aging. Another denial situation, but, I'm very sensitive at this time. Everything's so new for me. There's so much I have to learn. I don't know what I need to learn even, and I'm scared. And so the last thing I needed was comments like this. I needed just support and, we're there for you. That's what I needed to hear was, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Not family members who, when I needed them to help me with the stimulation program, didn't show up. I needed to know I'm here for you. Another denial situation took place about a month after Bree's first grand mal seizure, which were 4 hours long. Walter's job took him away, and I went to stay with my parents during his absence. One reason was that if she had another seizure, I needed someone to take me to the hospital. My oldest brother came over with his family, driving his old truck, and my father loaned him his car so the children could have a more comfortable ride home. That to me was bad enough, for my father knew I was relying on his car to be available if something happened with Bree. And what made things worse was that he didn't even have the keys to the truck that was the only vehicle left. He didn't even have the keys. He thought rather vaguely that the keys might be somewhere in the truck itself, and became angry with me for panicking when a search showed they weren't there. It was obvious that he was not prepared to face how delicate Bree's hold on life was, and how important it was to get quick medical attention whenever it was needed. In the end, he made a thorough search for the keys and eventually found them. That night around midnight, Bree had a seizure. Mild enough for her to be out of it before we reached the hospital, but I couldn't shake off the fear of what might have happened if it had been a major attack with no transportation readily available. I didn't know about seizures. I didn't know anything about seizures. I just know that they could kill her or make situations worse. And I relied on getting to the hospital because that's what I knew up to then. I didn't know about allergies causing them. I didn't know any of that. My father's attitude did not change much over the years that followed. I guess because Bree didn't grow out of it. She failed to live up to his expectations, but then I guess he didn't live up to hers either. When fall came, I put a lot of time into the ski school, motivated by the fact that I hoped it would pay for Bree's program in Philadelphia. We hired a friend, Diane Gosselin, to work with us. She had been at the ski school in St. Sever, so we knew it would work out well. There were actually only 10 weekends of skiing involved, but these required a lot of preparation. Buses had to be hired, ski hills chosen for the good ticket rates they would give us, and hours had to be spent on the phone getting bookings. We needed a minimum number of children to make it worthwhile. There were 2 sections of the school, one for older skiers who would be taken to different areas each weekend, and the other for youngsters who went to the same ski slope every week. We also had a ladies' day on Wednesday, taking one load of women to a different ski area each week. The program included ski lessons during the day, and it also involved hiring instructors. A government-funded organization called Service Domicile gave me 4 hours of help with Bree each week, and this allowed me some free time for the ski school. One woman who came to the house told me that she had seen another family doing what she believed was the Philadelphia Institute's program, and she promised to get me their phone number because I'm in waiting now to get there. This proved to be a lucky break because the mother I contacted said that there was a cancellation waiting list, and if we were in a position to take an appointment on short notice, we could get our name on the list and possibly cut down our waiting time considerably. The woman was willing to have us visit her home and see the program in action. I arranged to go to her house because I was looking for ideas. I was looking, maybe I could start the program early, but being on that cancellation waiting list was a good insight. And I'm seeing how everything lines up. Timing, you know, the idea that there's no accidents. I've seen it throughout my life with Bree. It's just amazing. The Hubertos, they were the Hubertos family, lived in a large renovated farmhouse near St. Jerome, about 25-minute drive south of us. Their son was 9 years old and severely brain injured. Because he was tall and his muscles were very tight, it took 5 people to do what's called patterning. Patterning is part of the stimulation program that I will explain later. The father was a partner in a business and was able to take time off to help his wife with half the patterning program. He looked at Bree and said, "Ah, yes, there is someone in there behind those eyes." That was very inspiring to me. He and Walter spent some time together talking man to man, which gave Walter a better idea of what the program would mean. I took copious notes, and before we left, I had arranged that I could spend a whole day there to see a program from start to finish. The day before I was scheduled to go to Mrs. Herbertois, Jeanette called and altered my visit to half a day. I didn't show disappointment, but after I hung up the phone, I cried. I cried feeling I might miss something important for Bree in that half day, that I wouldn't be there. And I understand. I mean, when I was doing a program, when I started doing it, I didn't want someone for a full day. You want to show them and talk to them, but you're so busy yourself. But it was just, I just was so wanting to find positive things for Bree, positive. And, these are the emotions. Walter's mom looked after Bree when I went so I could concentrate on what I was learning about the program. I watched, listened, took notes, and Jeanette loaned me 3 of the Institute's books, more information I could use to help Bree. I returned home filled with hope. The Hubertos boy was 6 before his parents found out about the Institute. Bree was so much younger that she had more of a chance to improve because the younger a child is, when you start the program, the better the results because the brain is still developing. If you can do it immediately, soon after birth, all the better. There seemed to be a possibility we could get an appointment for the following July. This would suit us perfectly because of finding out about the cancellation list. The ski school would be over and we would have free time. In the meantime, I made drastic changes in Bree's environment, making it more stimulating because I was learning from the books how to make her environment more stimulating. Bree motivated me and I felt like I could move mountains for her. I am amazed at what I did. Chapter 6. Having a successful winter with our ski school became very important because we needed money for the trip to Philadelphia and for the monthly fee that was charged for the program. Walter's mother took care of Bree all day Saturday and Sunday during the 10 weeks. This meant extra work for her, as she was also looking after 2 other grandchildren. She did a great job, and I don't know how I could have managed without her help. I would have entrusted Bree to no one else except my mother, but she lived 2 hours away, and so it was Murray, and her nickname was Murray. And Murray, you and Mom, God bless you. 2 fantastic women who just loved Bree. Bree was their grandchild. That was it. And for Murray, it was her oldest grandchild, So, God, she saved me that winter. It was just, and we had issues in the past, Murray and I, because, you know, her mom died, her dad died, Murray's dad died when she was like 12, and his name was Walter, and her oldest child is a son named Walter, who I married. There's really difficult emotional things going on. But, you know, there was a period we didn't even talk for a few years. And then one day I called her and I said, you know what? You know, let's get together. And we did. And I loved her dearly, you know, for the rest of the time. You can work things out. You can get to your heart, go into your heart. And she's an amazing woman, Murray. Oh my God, businesswoman, and like my mom, they were amazing woman. I mean, before their time, really. The weekends with the ski school were crazy. Walter was kept busy at his job, Mont Saint-Sever, and I was on my own. When the Saturday program was over and the children were on their way home, I was busy with preparation for Sunday activities. If the buses were late because of bad weather or heavy traffic, I would be on the phone for hours consoling parents that the kids were safe, they're on their way home. During the day, all of us instructors fully occupied running after children, making sure they were happy, and more importantly, that they were all accounted for. Heaven forbid a parent should decide to come collect a child who would not be found instantly. We provided lunches for the whole group and arranged from 4 to 6-year-olds, and food likes and dislikes had to be considered. It was a 6-year-old from one of the weekend groups who had yelled, "Stopped acting like a retard." All I felt was anger, you know, when I started the book. Here I was, stuck with these little rich children whose parents were happy to get rid of them for a full day, and all I wanted was to be at home with my own child. I mean, I was doing that because we had to have money. Some of the younger children didn't even want to be there. They were only 4 years old, left there, you know, coming on a bus, and they didn't even want to be there. They would have preferred to be at home, but their parents were determined to make them great skiers. Either that or they just wanted to be rid of them. I don't know. I did my job teaching them to ski, but I really didn't enjoy it, as I wanted so much to be with Bree. I couldn't understand why parents would send such young children on an hour-long bus ride to ski all day and then face the long bus ride home. Maybe it was just a good way to tire their children out. I mean, it was beyond me. And I made sure they were safe. We survived that first winter, and we paid off quite a bit of the ski school debt, the bank loan, all bills and salaries. It was an interesting view of human nature. Here were all these very wealthy families sending their children to learn to ski, making sure they had the most comfortable buses, the most expensive slopes, and yet many were reluctant to pay for it. They all wanted discounts and special deals. A large group of people who thought the world owed them something, that they were entitled. I planned to do Bree's stimulation program all summer and told Walter not to count on me for the ski school the following winter. I felt certain that by July we would be going to Philadelphia. I cannot explain how I knew this. I just did and told everybody so. I had no idea we would be going then. We were on a cancellation waiting list, but somehow I kept saying we were going. I knew we were going. Bree really motivated me to be a better person, really. We celebrated the end of ski school with a party with 100 of Walter's ski instructors and their guests, totaling at least 200. That would be the last time we would be all together until the following season, and we had a sit-down dinner followed by dancing. There was a surprise for us, a true surprise. At the end of the meal and after the presentation of merits of award, a guy named Dave Levy, one of the instructors, stood up to make an announcement that would change many things for us. He said that without our knowledge, he had been telling people about Bree and our plans, and he was happy to say that a trust fund holding some $11,000 had been established to pay for all our expenses in Philadelphia. I mean, it was like a miracle. I was going, oh my God. My financial worries were over. Now we had money for the trip to Philadelphia and also enough to pay for a 2-year program. Truly, I thought, God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to behold. This was huge. I could just focus on the program. Dave came to the house to give us the details of the trust and told me there was enough to enable me to hire a second person to help with the program. I decided to offer the job to Walter's oldest sister, who was not working at the time, and she accepted. I gave her a copy of What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child so she could get an idea of what was ahead of her. Over the next few months, we had Dave over to our house often. We'd invite some other friends as well. It was one way we could show our gratitude. I noticed that he got moody and withdrawal whenever he was not at the center of attention. I mentioned this to Walter, but he thought it was perhaps just how he acted when he was tired. Everything was coming together perfectly. We didn't have to worry about how we were going to pay for the stimulation program, and the ski school was finished. I was able to set up a mini stimulation program for Bree to prepare for the fall. Walter actually cut a wooden alphabet, which I used as a stencil to make huge word cards, and I started a reading program using a design from the Glenn Dolman's book on teaching babies to read. Walter made an inclined plane so Bree could start a crawling program. I will put attachment to the video where I show her stimulation program to this video. Bree could start a crawling program. This was wonderful, as with the aid of gravity, it gave Bree the idea of what it felt like to be able to move. Fortunately, the 6-foot-long piece of equipment fitted easily into our large house we were living in at the time. Yeah, I never thought of that, but that large Swiss chalet with that main room, everything open, gave us a lot of room. Daily massage became a part of Bree's program. I wish I had have known the benefits earlier, as I believe it had greatly increased her emotional well-being if I had have used it from birth. Now she was always getting an hour massage every day. Studies have shown that when a baby is held, the heart rate slows, muscles relax, the waves in the gut and the digestive, they move, they increase, and the digestive juices flow. This holding is crucial to a mother-child bonding. When there is no bonding, there are often problems in social bonding later in life. A baby deprived of touching literally shrivels. It is also known when the digestive juices are not activated, the child fails to receive proper nourishment and its physical growth is retarded. So massaging babies from day one is really important. That connection is really, really important. And kids that spend time in hospitals, all wrapped up, never touch, gotta have that. Monkeys, or that matter, our brain injured children, I don't mean that, but when deprived, this is a research, when deprived of their mothers, show signs of neuroticism and even psychosis. They spend their time sitting passively and staring out into space with no interest in other monkeys or anything else. How many brain injured children have you seen doing that? They need touch, they need interaction. June 19th, 1982, an absolutely great day. Early that night, the Institutes called to offer us a cancellation date for July 19th. Wow, here it was. My only concern was Walter had responded to the call. He answered the phone in an enthusiastic manner. He told them we would probably accept the opening and would get back to them. So he answered the phone, and that's how he was, like nonchalant. I was afraid his response might indicate indifference and give a bad impression. I called him back immediately to confirm the appointment, saying that Bree and I would be there one way or another, even if it meant walking. I was so excited that this opportunity had finally come that I spent the rest of the evening dancing around, unable to sit still. Since a child, when big things like this happen, I dance. And I'll tell you a story. When I was a little girl, I had some eye problems. I had cross-eyed, which disappeared when I became macrobiotic, vegan, plant-based. Went away in a couple of years. And I had astigmatism, but they decided not to operate. They had operated on an older brother and his eyes were fine, but they decided not to operate him because I had astigmatism. So I had to go to Montreal, which was overnight by train, for 6 weeks to do these eye exercises and stay with these extended family members, I didn't know. And I know when I came home, my mother said she had never forgotten it. I danced all day because I was so happy to be home. So when I'm really happy, I dance. So anyway, that's what happened. I was just so excited. We're going. A month till our appointment, and as it might have been a chance for a vacation, as we might not have a chance for a vacation for the next 2 years, we decided to spend the last 2 weeks of July before we go there in the Gaspé cabin, where it's a family cabin. It didn't cost us anything. We just had to get there. If we were accepted into this program, there would be a lot of work ahead. But that and the loss of free time seemed a little small price to pay to have Bree well. I desperately wanted her to be well. In my prayers, I had always told God that hard work was not a problem for me. I just needed to be told what to do. The Institute did not guarantee anything, but I knew that even if Bree didn't get totally well, she would be much improved. Only families who were prepared to commit themselves are accepted into the program. The 18-month waiting list of families from all over the world who wanted to do the program. I mean, there were families that I met from all over the world. Some children die while waiting to get accepted. So why would the institutes waste time with parents who were not prepared to work seriously at the program to the exclusion of others who wouldn't? So they were gonna accept you or not, and there were some families they didn't accept because they weren't committed. I just hoped that when the time came for our interview, Walter would sound as committed as I was. I certainly didn't want to be refused a place. All my hopes were riding on this stimulation program, and it was. You know, this was it. This was our chance. This was our chance to help the girl. So now we're going into the stimulation program and everything it took. Dave Levy was surprised to hear we were getting a July appointment. The guy who set up this supposed trust fund in Philadelphia. And when I told him we were having a 2-week break at the Gaspé, he suggested we call him on our way back. Then he would have $500 for us to cover the cost of our trip. The rest of the trust money was tied up in bonds and could not be drawn out at such short notice. That's what he's telling me. I was hoping to find volunteers in the small town we were going on vacation so I can continue with at least some of the program that I'd already started. My cousins Viv and Carol offered to help, as did Carol's husband Stephen, who was a distant cousin of mine. They were fantastic, and I shall always remember them fondly for their help. They had offered to help without any idea of what they were getting themselves in for. Vivian turned up at 8 o'clock each morning. Alas, they were the only relatives who were willing to help during the entire 2.5 years I was doing the program. Bree was ready for this new stimulation program. The reading part was great fun, and the Unkind plane worked beautifully in preparing her for a full mobility program. The idea of that apparatus was to get moving any child who had never before moved and therefore had no idea how it felt. Basically, it was a plywood chute, 8 feet long, 30 inches wide, and 8 inches sideboards. The main surface was covered with a smooth sheet of pressed wood. It was raised at one end to a height that would get Bree moving forward with minimal effort on her part. As she became able to travel the entire length, we gradually lowered the height until she was finally flat on the floor and moving without the assistance of gravity and the tilted chute that the tilted chute provided. We had been using it for several months before the first visit to Philadelphia, and by the time the phone call came offering the early appointment, Bree had just arrived at floor level. We had high hopes that the Institute would be the answer to Bree's problems. To date, all the people who had dealt with her had done so in a series of separate treatments eyes, seizures, teeth, legs were all dealt with independently and by different therapists or doctors. The Institute's basic principles that all these different problems were symptoms only, and the real cause of them was the brain itself, and therefore it was the brain that should be treated instead of the individual parts of the body. Makes sense to me. The drive to Philadelphia was dreadful. It was during a heat wave. We didn't have air conditioning in the car. Each time we stopped for gas or food, I took Bree to the restroom and gave her a sink bath to cool her off. We did the 11-hour trip in a single stretch and were very tired by the time we reached our hotel. The dining room was air conditioned, and when we went for supper, Bree was soon fast asleep in the booth. That night, the air conditioner in our room was not working properly, so we had a fitful sleep. That was unfortunate because we had been warned ahead of time that the first day at the Institutes would be a 12-hour day. They were not exaggerating. After initial meeting with Glenn Doman, we were taken in hand by Lee Patterson, who was the lady that was the first editor of this book for me, who began what was to be a very bulky file on Bree by taking down a detailed family history. We went on to see other people, all doing different testing to assess Bree's abilities and deficiencies. We saw the last one at 1 a.m. and finished there at 2:45 a.m. I was most impressed. I'd never seen professionals so dedicated to the work, and it was obvious that people putting in that sort of hours had to love brain-injured children. At our last interview on the first day, we were told Bree was a candidate for the Institute's program. It sometimes happens that some children who come have been misdiagnosed and are not brain injured but have psychotic or other problems, which the Institute does not deal with. In a way, it was rather odd to feel relief at being told my child was brain injured, and a strange twist to realize that if she had not been, she would not have been accepted accepted in the program. There was still no certainty that we would be accepted, and we wouldn't know until the end of the week after several more interviews. As I explained earlier, because of the long waiting list, the Institute goes to great lengths to ensure the parents understand what is demanded of them and are willing and able to do a full program with their child. Otherwise, they would be politely but firmly rejected, and another family would be given the opportunity. We spent all day Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the lecture auditorium. I found it very hard to leave Bree with strangers. I knew the lectures were an important part of our learning process, but I worried about being away from her a full day. Walter couldn't understand my deep concerns that was caused by fear that a problem would occur and I would not be there. The children were cared for by the same staff members we had already seen, who in addition to caring for their physical needs, also took the opportunity to discuss each child and begin preparing programs to suit individual needs. The 3 days of lectures were fantastic. We were in our seats for a total of 10 to 12 hours each day. The lectures lasted 50 minutes, and then there was a 10-minute break and a short lunch break. The auditorium itself was kept at a below-average temperature. The results of NASA studies have shown that intelligence and alertness are heightened by cooler temperatures. We needed to be totally alert because this was the most there was so much information to be absorbed. Glenn Doman was the principal speaker, and he spoke each morning for a full period, lecturing without notes as he taught the beginning of a brain-injured child's development as the way we would be using for the treatment of our children. Much of the material was from the book, What to Do About Your Brain-Injured Child, and the lecture parents gave him an opportunity to explain beyond the limitations set by the size of his book. There was so much information. As well as outlining many of the successes of families on the program, he also gave details of many studies and experiments that had been done elsewhere in the world and the results achieved. What he said just made sense, plain common sense. One aspect that he strongly emphasized was the need for positive attitudes and unconditional love being demonstrated by any family hoping to improve the condition of their brain-injured child. Friday was D-Day for the families. This was when they would be, when they would find out whether they were accepted for the program, and if so, they would be taught one specifically, a program specifically designed for their family. During the 3 days the staff had taken care of Bree, Bree had been evaluated, and at the Friday interview, we were told she tested at an 8-month level of ability. She was 27 months old. She was tested higher than her medical history suggested. This was because I had already started the program at home, and so she was recognizing words and therefore testing higher on the visual and intellectual levels. Because of the work on the inclined plane, she tested higher on the mobility level. Although she had been tested on 6 levels, visual, auditory, tactical, mobility, language, and manual competence, these were the 6 levels which the Institute, after 40 years of studying man and his development, had identified as the 6 functions that characterize humans and distinguish them from other living creatures. This is just an amazing program. All are unique and all are functions of the cerebral cortex. The institutes had also identified them as the 6 things that are life's test of intelligence, and that each of them occurs in the 7 vital stages of the brain's development, beginning at birth and ending at 6 years old. They also discovered that excellence in these levels, these 6 levels, is not inherited but acquired, and it is possible to improve all of them by selective programs because they are interrelated and dependent on each other. Improvement in one of these abilities had an effect on all others. For example, it's not possible to improve a child's mobility without also improving visual, manual, auditory, and tactical ability. The Institute had designed a profile on which to record each child's competence level so that a look at this would show exactly where the child's ability lay in relation to each function and which area needed concentrated attention. The profile done for each child at the initial visit is updated on successive visits so that a complete record of neurological development is shown. The news that we had been accepted for a program brought mixed reactions. On the one hand, there stretched out a 2 years of hard work ahead. On the other hand, this was our child's life, our daughter's life, and why would we not be willing to give that time to her? As Bree had developed a habit of rolling onto her back on the floor and then staying in that position, we were showing how to make an anti-roll device. Rolling does nothing to advance the mobility of a child, and in fact, it's a surrender position in an animal. So it's not, you need to be on your stomach. To move forward, a child must be in the prone, face down position, so that the arms and legs will propel the body forward as they move. We were given a patterning program in which the arms and legs of an immobile child are moved in what would be the natural movements of a crawling child, so that the brain learns how these movements feel. A pattern is established that a child can put into use independently. Okay, this patterning, which you'll see in my other video, was amazing because I actually saw throughout Bree's life, in different positions of learning new things, Bree start to make those same movements, those patterning movements. So it's like you retraining the brain. You're actually doing open brain surgery. That's what it actually is. I don't know if I mentioned that later on. We were also told that Bree would be a floor baby, which meant she would spend most of the 24 hours of a day on a safe, clean, warm floor to give her the maximum opportunity to move. That was it. The idea was the greater the amount of movement Bree acquired, the more purposeful her crawling would become, and the sooner she would acquire the necessary strength and balance to be able to get up on her hands and knees and creep. This would be the initial step that would lead to standing and walking. Massage would be for the send tactical message. Her reading program would continue, giving audio and visual stimulation, and her nutritional program would include vitamins. After having been taught the program, we were surprised to be told that we were not to decide on the spot whether or not we would actually undertake to do it. The Institute suggested we return home and discuss it, especially with any family members who might be involved in the program or affected by it, and then, away from the enthusiasm of the staff in Philadelphia, make a sober and reasoned decision about what we had been taught and told. If we decided to go ahead with the program, we would return at regular interviews to have Bree reevaluated, and as necessary, have a new and additional program designed for her. One service provided by the Institutes that we had not seen elsewhere was their advocacy program system. Under this, a special member of the staff was given the responsibility of several families with whom he or she was expected to keep in touch. This meant that the advocate knew the child and the parents intimately and was totally conversant with the program, and that was being followed in all its aspects. It also meant that a family having problems could call on this individual directly to discuss possible solutions. What a difference this was from other organizations. If you call a hospital about a child who's been treated there, you are not likely to find anyone who remembers any details or is at all familiar with that particular child. My experience had been that a child becomes a number in a file, and it's not necessary for anybody to look up a chart to learn what happened in the last. Yeah, they have to look up a chart to find out what happened. You don't have this one-to-one. There had been 27 families in our group, and these included the best fathers I'd ever seen. I had expected to meet caring mothers, but the fathers were right in there too, taking responsibility as well. I hoped that this had been a good opportunity for Walter to talk with other fathers who had been in the same situation as he was. On our last day of lectures, we were told the odds were that there would not be accepted. The odds were that 3 would not be accepted as suitable for the program. One family would decide against taking on the work and so would not return. 2 children would show little or no improvement. 21 children would improve, ranging from showing significant improvement to becoming totally well. How badly I wanted to be in this last group. So this was the turning point, learning this program. And the only regret I had later on is that Walter lost interest. And I was alone. You'll see volunteers come in, amazing volunteers, people to help. Women, these women. Women are so strong. And so I'm just continuing this and sharing this, what it took. But that stimulation program, I wish I had known about it at birth for Bree. I wish I had known about the nutrition that I was later learned at birth. All those things would have made a difference. And even if I had the C-section when was her due date, everything would have made such a difference. But no regrets. I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, and I'll never, I'd do it over again in a nanosecond.